Meantime, U.S. President Donald Trump is lauding the progress his team has made in attempting to negotiate a peace deal between these two countries. In a post on social media, Trump says he's sending Special Envoy Steve Witkoff to meet with President Putin in Moscow and Secretary of the Army Dan Driscoll to meet with Ukrainian officials in hopes of finalizing the American 28-point peace plan. Trump also says he will only meet with Zelensky and Putin when a deal to end the war is finalized or in its last stages. Let's now invite Jim Townsend, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for European and NATO policy. Jim, good evening and thank you for your time.
Well, thank you for asking me.
Ukraine's president is sounding more optimistic this time with the principles of the new U.S. draft. So what do we know about this draft so far, Jim?
Well, I think the principles certainly are better than were in that first document that we have been looking at for the past couple of days. The principles leave more of the decision-making to Ukraine in terms of certain aspects of Ukrainian sovereignty. And so there is not as much of the tilt towards Russia as there was. There's still got to be work done, particularly on the land aspect, lands occupied by the Russians, as well as those lands in the Donbass that are not occupied by the Russians. So there is, so we're not out of the woods yet, but it's good that the administration is saying things are going along well, because that will lift that deadline, I think, during Thanksgiving, this coming up on Thursday.
You know, as you were mentioning, last time the proposals seemed to have favored Russia more. This time it's Ukraine that seems more ready, but Russia was not consulted. So what are you anticipating in the next steps as Steve Witkoff travels to Moscow?
Well, I mean, that's exactly the big question that everyone has, is Russians get a vote on this. And if they say, look, we like the way it was stated in that first document, and we're not going to budge from that, then we know we have a negotiation on our hands. It's not going to be something quick. It could be the Russians are going to play the long game. They seem not to feel any rush to go to the peace table. They feel that in the long run, they're going to win on the battlefield, and that the Europeans and the Americans will fade away after a while. He seems to really believe that. So he could decide that as far as the future is concerned, he's going to see what the West can deliver in terms of an agreement. But he's in no hurry to agree to something.
Jim, what do you think are the non-negotiables here? What are some of those sticking points, if agreed upon, will lead to a bad precedent?
Well, I think if we see something where Russia is dictating to Ukraine, Russia is brushing aside any kind of dignity for the Ukrainians in terms of their own decision-making for what their military looks like, whether they join NATO or not, membership in the European Union, and also the lands. That's going to be really important, that's dealt with in a way that has dignity to it. It goes back to what Zelensky said earlier about the dignity of the Ukrainian people. And I would say the final one to me is there was a lot of sacrifice, so much sacrifice by Ukrainian soldiers and civilians over time. That has got to be honored in the sense that just to give away land that is unoccupied by the Russians, or other kinds of concessions that impact Ukrainian sovereignty, that will just undercut the dignity that Ukraine deserves, particularly given the sacrifices that they've made.
All right, we'll have to leave it at that tonight then. Jim Townsend, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for European and NATO policy. Thank you for your time, Jim.
You're very welcome. Thank you.